Man, I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It is. It has. It's yeah, I was thinking about you guys the other day and definitely missing being out and hanging out at Ukaipa and seeing you around and you guys have been having a good time, I would assume, with the
Oh yeah.
legendary Stu Thompson.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. He's I'll tell you, man, something that was humbling, I think, for Connor Fields was he hit us up and said he wanted to do a clinic there. He was going to be in town. And as soon as we posted it, Stu texted me and said, "Hey, can I get in on that clinic or is it too late?" It's like I called Connor. I was like, "Hey, you're not going to believe this, but Stuart Thompson wants in on your clinic." He's like, "What?" It was amazing.
That is awesome. And it just goes to show like people like Stu are very teachable and they're I think I mean you don't get to the level that Stu played at by not listening to people and rejecting other people's experience.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was kind of neat. Just to speak to character a little bit, is Connor Fields had it was a full clinic. I think there was 15 kids there. He had goodie bags for everybody and all that stuff. ODI was there, with him, Colby from ODI, and everybody was either zelling him or giving him cash and stuff for the clinic. And Stu came up and said, "Hey, I can sell you or I can pay you cash." Connor Field said, "Without you paving the way, I I don't have a career, so I'm not taking your money." And I thought that was kind of a class act.
BMX Breakthrough is bridging the gap from old school to new school, from tracks to manufacturers, from new riders to their local tracks, and it doesn't stop at racing, but the mission is to connect people with bikes. Join me, Jay Oaks, as I interview key people in the sport and in the industry that are involved in their local circles, in their communities, at their local tracks, and aiming to make a difference on a local level. You'll hear stories, marketing tips, failures, successes, and a way to make a difference in your local BMX community. Let's dive in as we kick off this next episode. I think some of the people that were pro know who he is. Some of the people that are pro, but there are a lot of people that actually don't even realize the impact that someone like him had on the sport.
Right. So I try to do every year we have our state race, and every year I reach out to somebody that I know in BMX to come out and kind of give a history lesson. We just grab a couple mics and just talk. It's hey, remember when we used to ride here and it's just that kind of stuff. And Stuart was one of them. He came out and did it. I've had I had Todd Lyons. I had Craig Kundig, who founded RRS and was pretty big in Kuwahara, team manager back in the day. So he came out and he brought with him, which was really cool, um, the first ever 24-inch cruiser to win a cruiser title. It was Joe Claveau's first when ABA back then first put cruiser as an official class and gave it a national title. Claveau was the first guy to win it. He won it on that bike. And when he crossed the line, I guess Craig said, "This bike is going to mean something." And so at the end of that season, it still had Joe's number one plate on it, still exactly as Joe rode it on his last race, and he handed it to Craig. And Craig still has it exactly like that. Same tires, same everything. And he brought it out to the track with him. So everybody was taking photos with it and stuff. Well, a couple weeks later, he lent that to the Hall of Fame, and now it's in Tulsa. So everybody at Ukaipa got a chance to sit on that bike, and it was kind of neat that they now there's a piece of history that was at Ukaipa and now at the track. But it's neat to talk about how it was back in the day with some of those old guys. Like just um, let's talk about what it was back in the day and how did you do this. a lot of people don't know it. He was the guy who gave Hollywood the name Hollywood. He was
Really?
the yeah.
Well,
Um,
how did that happen?
as I understand it, Mike forgot his jersey, and his dad had this Hawaiian shirt that he used to use to check the oil in the car, and it had like stripes on it, and like it was, and it was the only long sleeve shirt he had. So Mike wore that, and Craig was announcing and just started calling him Hollywood because he was out there with a Hawaiian shirt on racing.
That's amazing. And
And here it is, 50 years later, and still a deal. You
that is super
know,
cool. So would Mike have been, was he a kid at that point?
um, I wasn't at the race. I
Oh, okay.
just know that happened. But I Mike was probably early teens. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Man, that's really fun. That's it's cool to hear those stories too. And obviously, I mean, it's an incredibly fitting nickname because he's very, very out there, very much a performer and a showman.
yeah.
So it always stuck.
He
Yeah.
was one of the first guys. Um, I, so I don't know if you know, I wrote a book, and in the book, there's a little section on how I met Mike. And it was I went out to Corona, and not the Corona, but out to the Corona YMCA, which was kind of a second Corona, and I wanted to give BMX a shot, and had no idea what I was doing. And there was a jump where you you kind of were running straight at like back towards the starting hill, which was on the side of a hill, and then it went up, flat, turned 180, and came back down. And they called it Miranda Mountain. And I was like, I don't know what that is. Like what is Miranda? Everybody called it Miranda Mountain, but I didn't know what Miranda Mountain. And then he wasn't there that week, but the next week uh, there was this guy with Miranda on the back of his shirt. I was like, oh, maybe he named it. Well, then he comes into it, he hits it and did a 180 in the air and landed smooth on the downlift. So he just skipped the whole turn and just jumped over it. And I was like, well, now I know why they call it Miranda Mountain. And so I was walking up into staging to go up and do a practice gate. This was my second time at the track. I don't think I had raced yet. Maybe I had. But everybody was doing the two pedal starts, and I was just sitting on the seat with my foot on the pedal and one foot on the ground. And the starting hill at that track was like a cliff. It was amazing. And I asked Mike, I said, man, that was a cool jump you did there. And he's like, yeah, thanks, man. And I told him, yeah, it's like my first time here. And I see you guys doing those two pedal starts. How do you do that? And he actually showed me how to do it and took the time, I didn't know the guy from Adam, showed me how to do it. And I think from that point forward, after I got it, um, it's why I like the local scene so much because at nationals, everybody's focused on their national and nobody's helping a kid who's never been there before. You know what I mean? It's more, we're here for business, right? And so when I got better, I was expert. I always made it a point to get to the track early and catch that beginner when he was signing up, get his membership. Hey, come on, I'll show you. And I kind of show him, and it just kind of always, the local scene has always been a favorite of mine. And the stories are spinning off, but my dad and Billy Griggs' dad were really good friends way before BMX. I mean, yeah, Billy and I were just little kids, you know, 7, 8 years old, long before BMX. And as Billy got into BMX and I got into BMX separately, our dads kind of found each other. Hey, so Billy got into the national scene, and I was more of the local guy. One, I wasn't as competitive as he was, and two, I just love the local scene. And so my dad would actually say, "Hey, Billy's going to this national in Texas. Let's go." Like, I just wanted I liked my local scene better, you know. It was just, and I would go to them. I went to plenty of nationals. I did a lot of traveling and stuff, and but my favorite was always winning in front of my local guys. You know, that was better.
That's super cool. Which I think you and I have we've had conversations about local racing because it's one
Yeah,
of my favorite things. Just because I've enjoyed, what was it, 2022, and I've talked about this before, but like I think I went to 26 or 29 different tracks in 22, and none of them for nationals. It was all just for local
yeah.
races. And
That's how I met you.
yeah, exactly.
In fact, I don't know if you remember this, but I did it to you. You had showed up on a 26 or a 29
Yeah.
racing,
Yeah, the 26. Yeah.
and I turned on the mic and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! I didn't know you knew how to ride a bike. I thought you were just a dad chasing his kids." And I said, "Hey, that rhythm section and that wheelbase don't go together real well. So take it easy through there the first couple of times. I don't want you to get bucked off." And like just kind of giving you the tips, you know. Yeah, and I remember later finding out, you know, more of your history and stuff when we started talking, and then I ran into you at Dirty Fest and I think Whittier once, and Paris and Frogtown, and all over the place.
Yeah.
So you know, kind
Yeah,
of
then
weird
we
how things
started seeing each other quite a bit. Well, and the first time that we were there at Ukaipa is you had said that you do a moto of the week. And so
yeah.
you pulled me aside and you did the moto of the week on Ashlyn and Oliver.
Oh
And
yeah,
I
yeah,
and I remember telling you like, well, they're not that fast. They're just having a good time. And you're like, that's perfect. That's what we'll do.
it was weird how that started too. That was Brian Dorsey and I talking, and I said, you know, it's kind of cool that USA BMX YouTube's broadcasts the nationals on YouTube. I said, but think about the kid who doesn't go to nationals. He lives in California, but grandma lives in Florida or North Carolina or something. I said, wouldn't it be cool to just pick a moto and just broadcast a local moto like that grandparents from across the country could watch. And everybody's got a phone in their hand, but it's kind of cool to roll them out and announce who they are and where they're from and stuff, and then let them. So I've been doing that ever since. Yeah, we just do a moto of the week.
That's great. And I love the way that you do that. It makes you have the kids roll out to the first jump, you have them come back up. In the case of my kids, I remember you saying, we have a big starting hill. I don't know if they'll be able to get back up. So I ran down there, pushed them back up the hill.
Yeah,
And it makes it fun. And some of these kids are going to be too young, and maybe they don't necessarily remember, but at the same time it can be still an instrumental moment, and some of them it might actually be an iconic moment of
yeah,
that moment that somebody took time to recognize me, and it was just kind of
yeah.
fun and special.
Yeah, I mean, um, like I'll show up at tracks sometimes, and they'll say, "Oh, hey, do you want to announce?" Sure. And I'll go announce, and they're like, "Oh, we got Mike Miller here announcing," and that's all cool and flattering, and I'm very humbled by it. But the reality is, I learned from the best, and that was Redmond, and actually Linda Dorsey as well. And they were about the riders. It wasn't that Redmond was a great announcer. He was so funny on the microphone, and him and I were friends forever. But when I would show up at his track, he would say, "Hey, can you announce?" I go, "Dude, like everybody's here to see you. I feel like nobody's here to listen to me. They want you." And he's like, "No, no, man, I don't like announcing. You do it. You do it." And I'd go up there, and he always would like instill into you without actually giving you instructions or whatever. He would just make sure that if you were announcing at his track, you knew this is not about you. This is about those kids. Build that kid up. Make him feel special. Make him do push-ups if you don't race to the finish line. Point him out, call him out, do whatever. and that's kind of, I guess, the model, if you will, that I use. I mean, it's not about me. And now I have this little, I don't know if you've been following, but I have this little co-host. Have you seen him?
Um, I,
This,
I, I don't know if yeah, I think I have, but I'm
it
kind of drawing
started
a blank, but
it started with Una Turner, who writes for Aldi's, Scott Angus, and she was out there, and I said, "Oh, you want to announce a moto?" And I handed her the headset, and she announced a moto, and everybody said, "Man, she did really good." Well, the next week she wasn't there, and another kid, Kellen Zuniga, said, "Can I announce a moto?" Sure. And I gave him a microphone. Well, he actually embraced it. He loves it. And so every week when he gets there, he goes and gets his microphone and he comes up to the tower and he'll go, "Hey, I'm racing today, but I'll do the striders and I'll do the cruisers and then I gotta go race my moto and then I'll come back and you do," like he's like the boss now. It's so
that
funny.
that's right. He's the one that you guys just were given trophies at the
Yeah, right,
year-end party,
right.
and then he sets up. Is it Mini Bone?
Mini bones,
Is that what
yeah.
he said?
That's
Yeah.
the
Okay.
Instagram. Yeah. Um, I call him nerd rope because when sometimes we would have a new rider come out to race Strider, and he's actually 7 years old, but he's small. And so if we didn't have two Striders, it's like, wow, this kid came out, his parents bought a membership, and we don't have another Strider. So I'd say, "Hey, Kellen, can you race Strider?" And he'd go, "Okay, but you got to give me a nerd rope from the snack bar, the candy." So he just got the nickname Nerd Rope. He's his Instagram is Mini Bones, but I call him Nerd Rope.
That's
So
awesome.
he would fill in, and like he's at that time he was 6 or 7, but sometimes you get a 3 or 4 year old and he's like the same size. He's a small kid. So he would get out there and he would let them win, and he'd chase them around and go faster, and he'd make it fun for them. He's really a good kid. The whole Zuniga family.
That's
But
cool. That
it's like he, if you would have seen him the first time I handed him the mic, like I handed it to him when it was on, and he turned it off and he whispered to me like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you said you wanted to do a moto." It's like, "Yeah, but what do I say? What do I say?" And now he comes up to the tower strutting with his microphone on already. He's talking all the way from the snack bar coming over to the tower. And like he's got something to say. Like he's calling shots. "I'll do this moto. You do the next one." He's so funny, and he's just come out of his shell. It's like it's changed you know, um, his whole personality has gotten more open, more vocal. It's really cool to see. And as
I,
he gets to the track, people ask him, "Are you announcing today?" "Yeah, yeah, I'm an announcer." It's pretty cool.
that's cool. And it shows what happens when a kid feels empowered and they're
Yeah,
given some sense of responsibility.
yeah,
Because we all want responsibility as a kid. You can't wait to be older so that so and so will trust you. And you want to be treated as a big kid, as a grown up. You want to be treated like the people that you aspire to be like. And you've given this kid that ability to go out and say what he wants to say. And
yeah. I mean, he's got such a personality. Really, I just gave him a microphone. You know what I mean? Like he is him, but he chooses the races. He'll look through the motor sheets and he'll look for a race that he knows who all the riders are, and then he can guess like who's going to win. And he'll look at it and he'll go, "Okay, so I know this one. Okay, I'll do this one." So when the gate goes down, he's calling it right at, he doesn't have to look at numbers or whatever. He knows it by looking at him. It's neat to watch him get more confident. And
that's fun.
we were laughing last week because when they were coming out of the last turn, he would always say, "Bringing it home is," and he would say who it is. Well, if he ran out of things to say, sometimes he'd say, "Bringing it home," and they're just coming out of turn two. Like, they got half a track left. They're not bringing it home yet. And I would just slow down, dude, slow down. But I kind of coach him through it, and then he's getting so much better. Now it's like even if I wasn't there one day, as long as he had an adult sitting there with him that could help him pronounce the names and stuff, he'd do just fine. Like he's got it.
That's super cool. And that's one of the things that's so neat about the local scene is that you don't have it's not the same every time, every week. There's the ability to be a little bit more creative, to have fun, to play around, to
Yeah,
to take chances and experiment with some things. And if it works, cool. If it doesn't, it's not the end of the
yeah,
world.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you were talking about the local scene, and I remember the conversation that we had. So will you talk a little bit about the your experience? Because I believe that you're visiting local tracks and you're getting connected with all the people you did came from, was your dad a truck driver?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so how did that work and incorporate into your racing?
Um, During the summer, I didn't have to worry about how to get anywhere. I just, I just got there. So, wherever my dad was going, I'd say there's got to be a track there. Throw my bike in, and he 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 owned an agent for a van lines, like Republic Van Lines, and he owned North Shore Van Lines, which was one of the warehouses that. But my dad loved driving a truck, so he was always out in the truck. And I still remember to this day, we were sitting in Virginia one time, and he said to me, "Any tracks around?" Like we were just done for the day. There's any tracks around? And I pulled out my ABA newspaper. Remember that, the ABA Action or whatever it was. And in the back, it had all the tracks. He was like, "Where are we at?" He goes, "We're in Virginia." Okay. "Oh, are we near Lynchburg?" And he goes, "Yes." "Oh, there's a track in Lynchburg." He goes, "Oh, it's like an hour away. Let's go." So we disconnected the trailer and left it at a truck stop, and we took off and went to Lynchburg. And I got there, and there was these kids that, like, the track was like a path. It wasn't even really a track. It was really kind of, but it was cool. It had a cool layout and stuff. Cool jumps. Um, like I was killing everybody, and I thought, oh, this is going to be boring. Like I was thinking, this is not even gonna. It wasn't even going to be a race. And then this guy shows up, and again, at that time, I was already friends with Mike Miranda, who rode for CW. Well, the kid shows up wearing all CW gear, and I was like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. And we got up in a practice game, and me and this guy were going elbow to elbow. And I was like, oh, now it's going to be fun. So we introduced ourselves and stuff. And I said, "Oh, my friend rides for CW. Who's that?" "Oh, Mike Miranda." "Oh man, he's like my buddy." And that's it. And so I was like, "Oh yeah, we hang out, we ride together." And that was Justin Shepard. So years later, when Facebook came out and everybody starts reconnecting, I mean, you're talking about probably 1980, maybe 1982 to maybe Facebook came out in what, 2005 or six or something like that, seven
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, so 30.
So I probably connected with him around 2008 or nine again, and it's like, "Hey, remember this?" He's like, "I think I do." So we're still at opposite ends of the country. Well, enter Dirty Fest, or Frogtown was the first one, right? And I get to Frogtown. Miranda's there, we're hanging out, and he goes, "Oh yeah, my buddy's coming from Virginia, Justin Shepard." No way! Like, talk about a reunion. I haven't seen this guy since we were like 12, 13 years old. It was kind of cool.
That's
And so
neat.
now we're reconnected, and we do Dirty Fest and Frogtown and all kinds of stuff. So really, really cool. I mean, BMX is a cool community. It really is.
A brief interruption to shout out and thank our sponsors that have joined us so far on the 2025 BMX Breakthrough Mission: Dan's Comp, Command Aviation, Sound Cedar Lumber, and Danger Snacks. Thank you so much for believing in what we are doing and being a part of what we're doing. If you are listening or watching, make sure you check out the links in the description in order to support the brands that support us. Again, we are so thankful for your partnership and super excited about what is on the horizon for BMX Breakthrough in 2025. Now back to our episode. There are other times are there activities where you could meet somebody and 30, 40 years later you end up seeing them again and you might remember who they are. But BMX is very unique in that is that you can see somebody once a year at a race. You could see somebody once a year at Dirty Fest and you'll have some sort of a connection, some sort of a bond because of what you do.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, no, I love that. I love that too because when you started talking in our conversation, you started talking about the people that you knew and were connected with, and it got to the point where I understood it because you grew up in Southern California, right?
I was born in New York
Oh, okay.
and Long Island, the North Shore of Long Island, which is with the North Shore van lines. That's where that came from. And then when I was 11, we moved to California.
Okay.
So our little kid.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean you had opposite corners of the country, but it made sense once you started talking about going and traveling to the different local events
Yeah.
and that's why you knew so many people and that's why you had so many connections within
Yeah.
the sport.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it like um, there was this place in Riverside. So Riverside was this hub of a lot of fast riders came from Riverside, um, Riverside, California. And so you had this place. It was alongside the riverbed. There's a river that runs through Riverside called the Santa Ana River, and there was this place alongside the riverbed called. It, we just called it the Riverside Sandhills. I don't know that it had a name, but um, the Sandhills was cool because it was sand, but it packed. It was weird. Like you could jump on it, but if you didn't like the shape of it, you just take your foot and rub it. And, you could change the shape of the lip and still go ride it like 10 minutes later. It was so close to the river that I guess there was enough moisture in it that it packed. And if you look at the guys that came out of there, it was like Miranda lived a couple blocks away, Kevin McNeil a couple blocks away, Lee Medlin, Richard Kerr, Andy Zirzo, Norco local. Man, just tons. Donnie Graves, just all these guys. Stuart Thompson lived right there. So when you went out to the Sandhills, like we were just after school, me and my buddy jumped on our bikes and we just go head to the Sandhills. I don't know who's going to be there, but somebody will be there. And we would show up and you'd run into a guy who's on in my magazine on the wall. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, I know that guy. So you got to really know a lot of people at the Sandhills, and sometimes you knew stuff before you knew stuff. Like um, Kevin McNeil, he got the number 1 title riding for Proneck, and then out at the Sandhills, he was riding a Bandito. It's like, what is that? Why is he riding a Bandito? And then you don't ask, but later it comes out in the magazine that he was on a Bandito. He actually got hurt really bad on that bike. That's where he got
Wow.
he snapped the head tube off of it. But I think he was trying to break it. He was trying to see how strong it was. He wasn't trying to break it. And I think the head tube snapped. I wasn't there, but the crossbar got him right in the nose. He was in the hospital for a long time.
That's
I
something.
don't know that he ever really recovered from that. Like I shouldn't be laughing. I think he was different after that.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that I don't think the current generation of racing and my generation don't really understand. So I grew up in the mid school era, and now there's the modern school, new school era of racing. And we don't have the same concept of the strength of bikes that you guys do
Yeah.
because broken frames haven't really been that much of a thing through the
Yeah.
90s and the 2000s and
It
stuff
still
like that.
happens, but the engineering is so much better. I mean,
You,
back
you
then it was, a dad with a torch, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
now, and
you guys
now
were
it's
test pilots.
so. Bandito, our local, not our local bike shop, Mike Miranda's local bike shop was either Riverside Redland Schwinn or Dave's Bike Shop. They were probably equal distance from his house. And Riverside Redland Schwinn, Craig Kundig, he's the one that created RRS, and that's what it stood for, Riverside Redland Schwinn. So he started making BMX frames. Dave's Bike Shop was Dave Henshaw. He started making Banditos. So right there, you had two bike shop owners that were building bikes right there, within a few miles from the sandhills. It was really kind of neat. Like you could go in and see what the latest and greatest was. I think Dave Henshaw, who was a great guy, he was the track operator at the Corona that I was talking about. Super nice guy. He was more of he knew the brand and knew how to market it, but wasn't really an engineering brain. So I think he went to CW or maybe Boris Dixon or somebody and said, make me a bike and I want to put this sticker on it and we're going to call it a Bandito, and he marketed it as Bandito. Craig Kundig was an engineer. Like he did some really groundbreaking stuff that, like the RRS had that eccentric bottom bracket with a fixed back wheel. And he did that because with flat turns, braking was such an important thing. He wanted to put cantilever brakes, but you couldn't use cantilever brakes if you had to adjust the back wheel. So we have to fix the back wheel. Well, how are we going to adjust the chain? Well, we'll make an eccentric bottom bracket and we'll just adjust it in the bottom bracket. And it just kind of one thing led to another, and the whole RRS became a really neat design bike.
Wow. I have never seen one of those, but now I'm
Oh,
really intrigued.
yeah.
Um, Although an eccentric bottom bracket, you don't have that much adjustment. So you're kind of
I'll give it
limited.
a link to, but
Okay.
on a, I think it's either a three-wheeler or a tandem. I think it's a three-wheeler. The old Schwinn three-wheelers,
Okay.
they had an eccentric bottom bracket. And because he was a Schwinn shop, it was either that or the Schwinn tandem bikes. One of them had an eccentric bottom bracket where it was an American bottom bracket with the bearing reduced size and out of center. And the bottom bracket on the frame had two Allen bolts. So you'd loosen the Allen bolt and you just turn your bottom bracket till the chain was tight and then tighten the Allen bolts. And it worked. I mean, there were some great racers that ran RRS. Mike started on RRS. Donnie
Okay.
Gray, he won a lot of races on RRS. Travis Younger was a little kid. He raced RRS. Kevin McNeil
Wow.
rode RRS. Richard Kerr rode RRS. I mean, he had a good team. He had a lot of
Wow.
good men.
That yeah, my only familiarity with eccentric bottom brackets is through tandems because there's still a number
Yeah,
of
that's,
tandems
I
that
think
use
it's
them.
tandem.
But no, I've never seen one of the RRS frames, so now I've got to go and do a little bit of research.
Yeah, it was really a unique design, and it was super steep forks. Like the head tube was, it cornered. You better be hanging on. It turned when you turned. It turned, and so he now Craig came and told me in my little interview at the state race that everybody was racing 26-inch cruisers, and he had this novice kid, um, novice or intermediate or something. I don't know if we had intermediate back then, so it must have been novice. But he went to a national. It was an indoor race on concrete, and he took um, 24-inch wheels and laced up a set of 24-inch wheels and designed a cruiser around these 24-inch wheels because he felt like I can get it out of the gate faster and I could turn it faster. And so this guy, Troy Daniels, who later rode for GT and for Kuwahara and stuff, but Troy Daniels got on this thing and said, I'll race it. And he was like a middle of the pack rider, I guess. And he ended up crushing everybody at this national. And so everybody was complaining, saying it was against the rules and all this stuff. And he had the rule book, and it said anything larger than 22 inches or something was what the rule book said at the time. And so he said, it's 24. Yeah, but everybody's running 26. We can't turn like that. Well, that's your fault. And it changed the whole, pretty soon everybody had 24-inch cruisers. It was a pretty big deal.
Wow. Oh, so, and what year did you say that would have been? Or ballpark?
80 maybe, 81.
Okay.
Yeah. It was
Yeah.
early. It was early.
Which is wild if you think about the history and the progression of the sport, because there are a lot of people that don't even know that a 26-inch cruiser was ever a thing. And so
Yes.
even now coming in, and obviously when I showed up to Ukaipa is an example of that, but it's amazing. For a little while I kept racing the racing car A26, and the amount of people that you would have look at you funny when you have a 26-inch wheeled cruiser is people are like, what are you doing with that thing?
Shouldn't you be
And
in New York riding wheelies right now?
exactly. And what I found was the amount of speed that you could gain through the rhythm section on a 26. Sometimes it outweighed the quicker starts of the 24.
Right. As long as you don't get bucked off it. Because sometimes the wheelbase, that's why I was warning you. Like, I didn't know if you knew. I was like, hey, be careful. That section can be tight.
Well, and Ukaipa, I mean, Ukaipa is a tight track anyway,
Right,
so
right.
it was helpful to know. But no, it's really interesting looking back and hearing the history of that, of going from 26-inch being the norm to, okay, now we're going to move all the way over to 24. And then, do you have a lot of familiarity with the middle ground of when people were running a 26 and 24 or 24 rear wheel?
So again, that is Craig Kundig.
Okay.
He he claimed again in that interview that Mike Miranda was becoming a star and was beating his guy because Mike had moved on and was beating his guy who was jumping Jim Pratt. I think Jim Pratt still works in one of Craig's bike shops, but I think the Riverside shop. But anyway, Jim Pratt was saying he's getting out of the gate. He's so fast out of the gate. I can't get him out of the gate. But if I could get in front of him, I could keep him, stay in front of him. And Craig created a bike with a 20-inch front wheel and a 16-inch rear wheel. And he claimed that when he put that bike together for Jim Pratt, he smoked Mike. And so that's where he said, we need to build a 26 front wheel for stability and a 24 rear wheel, which will do the same thing in the cruiser class. And that's that's what he said, that he was the one that did that.
Fascinating. Huh.
Like I said, he still is a pretty creative guy. He has a really engineering brain. If you ever are out here and can stop in one of his shops and actually meet him and talk to him and look at his scrapbooks and stuff, he has amazing stories about some of the stuff he's done.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. I mean, yeah, talk about innovation. And if I'm honest, I'm not familiar with his name. Um, I mean,
Yeah,
I've
he's in
heard it.
the Hall of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame
Uh,
as an industry guy.
Okay.
Um, he his dad opened a Schwinn shop when that was bike shops. Remember, there were Schwinn shops back in the day, and he had two of them. And I believe that one time there was a third. Now I think Craig has four, but they're they were called. There was one in Riverside and one in Redlands, and it was Riverside Redlands Schwinn, and that was the bike shop. And the one in Riverside was kind of a hangout. Like if you went riding with Miranda, you'd go out riding all around and you'd find jumps and jumping at the sand hills or whatever. But somehow he always ended up at RRS. It was just he knew everybody there, and so that's just kind of where you ended up. And Craig was one of the sons of the owner, and then I guess took over the business at some point, and
Wow.
still has them today. Yeah,
That's
he's a neat
cool.
guy.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard his name. I just don't have I haven't had familiarity with him. So I think I'm definitely going to have to do a little bit more research because that's a lot of innovation for the industry. Is there's obviously a lot of people that have contributed, but
Yeah,
just in
he
this
did a lot.
small conversation, the number of things that we've talked about that he contributed to, that's significant.
He told me a lot of stuff, and a lot of it I don't remember seeing with my eyes, but he was in the sport before me, so it was kind of interesting hearing it. And one of the things he was telling me is when he first built the RRS, he made all the riders cover them in the pits so that people could see them on the track, but not come over and look at how it was built and how it would, the angles on it and stuff. He claimed that there was some secret sauce there. And it's true that he was way ahead of everybody else. I mean, V brakes came along when way later. We all use side pull caliper brakes, and they'd always pull to one side, and it was always uneven. Um, but he was running cantilever brakes, and the only caveat was if you want to run cantilever brakes, you need a fixed back wheel. You can't have a move. You can't adjust them, and that was where the bottom bracket came from.
So speaking to that, did cantilever brakes not have adjustable pads at the time then? Okay.
They were fixed. It was just on a pivot, one
Okay.
cable in the center, and it pulled, and the two pads just yeah, it was kind of
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, that's that's wild. Yeah, it, it is interesting seeing some of the things that seem so normal now. Um
Yeah,
that,
or even outdated.
cantilever brakes that I mean, my dad bought me my first race bike was I think it was a 96 Redline RL 180, and it came with a side pull center mount brake.
Yeah,
And I remember, I think it was for Christmas one year. He actually took it. I grew up north of Seattle, and so took it down to Seattle and found a welder to weld V brake posts on it.
right.
And so I've still got the frame, and on the chainstay there's a V brake post, and then there's a section where I remember I have this vivid memory of it hanging in the garage, and it's taped up, and we spray painted it, and the spray paint, because the rest of the bike was chrome,
Yeah,
and we spray painted it, and it held up. It never rusted and never ate
yeah,
away. But anyway, but yeah, I got V brakes, and I had no idea what I was getting. But I just remember my dad saying, "Oh, we really don't want the side pull brakes," which I can't. Still, for the life of me, I can't get them adjusted and fixed. There are people that absolutely love them. I am not one of those people.
yeah.
Uh,
It was interesting. Just something I picked up on. I don't know if anybody even noticed it, but Elise, when she raced this year's Grands, was running V-Wave. Interesting, right? Because she was on
huh.
disc long ago.
Yeah. Is she
Yeah, I didn't understand the disc. Well, I shouldn't say that. I understand the movement to disc, but I considered it in my mind as a fad. And the reason is because in my mind, BMX is not a water sport. Mountain biking, I understand the disc. You know, if your brakes get wet with V brakes, you don't have brakes, so you need the disc. In BMX, I thought there's really no reason for it. If I can grab my V brake and skid, what more can you do with the disc? You can't do more than skid. I find that it's easier to feather the V brake if you need a little bit of brake, where the disc, if you touch it a little bit, it engages. Right? I feel like you get you're either on or off, right? I mean, you can feather it a little bit, but not like the V brake. And so I've always stuck with the V brakes. for all my bikes have V-brakes on them, except for my mountain bike. And to see her go the other way, go back to the V-brake, if I ever see her again at a track soon, I'm going to ask her that. So what's the deal?
Yeah. I'm curious because I personally am not a fan of the disc brakes. I like the disc brakes for the simplicity of adjusting the back wheel.
Yeah,
Um, but I am not a fan of the disc brakes and even less a fan of hydraulic disc brakes because that takes it a whole nother step. And I will say I think my favorite is the 120 rotor if you're going to run disc. Um, because I just don't want that much leverage on and stopping power. Uh, because I want to be able to feather it, and as somebody who has a tendency to probably overuse um, brake, and I'm constantly working on that, but I try to run my brakes a little bit looser because I don't want to grab them and have them lock me up.
right.
But I like the modulation of a V brake a lot
Yeah,
better. So anyway, I've not been a fan of it. But then there's people like Chris Moeller who recently designed his Mad Dog frame to run disc, and obviously he's not so much racing, but he's dirt jumping and stuff, and he absolutely loves the disc brake for that, and runs a hydraulic for the most part, and really likes that.
I have nothing bad to say about them. It's just I just considered it. Would I go out and get a new set of hubs or a new frame to support a change to disc? No, I don't see a reason for it. It's the same thing with the tapered head tube. I have one frame that has a tapered head tube and one frame that does not. It's just the size of the bearing on the bottom, right?
Yeah,
There's no advantage or disadvantage to it that I can see. I mean, maybe you could argue that, well, the fork has a bigger tube at the bottom, so it's stronger. I don't know, but I'm not doing a whole bunch of jumping. So
I mean, you've got a lot of leverage on a lot more leverage rather on that of a mountain bike, but on a 20 inch, yeah,
yeah,
not 100% sure, but yeah, we've definitely moved almost everything over to that.
yeah,
So,
right.
uh, but yeah, it's pretty cool. So, did your BMX journey was it was it long term? Uh, did you ever get to another level of riding, or did you mostly just stick to the
Only
local?
between my ears. So when I raced local Southern California and some nationals and Gold Cups and stuff, but when I went away to college, um, there was a local track, uh, and I met the owner of the track. I don't even remember his name now, but um, I asked him. He said, "Hey, you're a pretty good rider," and this, we kind of struck up a conversation. And I said, "You, I'd love to do like a clinic for little kids, like new kids, help build the ridership." And he was like good with it, but again, this is way before the internet, so there was really no way to promote it, and there wasn't like a whole like it is today. You can't just post it on Instagram and 15 people show up. So he said, "Well, most of the clinics are pros," and so I went and got a pro membership, thinking, "Okay, I'm good enough." Yeah, I was not.
Was
So
that a
that was the end
humbling
of that.
moment?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I did some, like pro-ams at locals and things like that. I was able to do the clinics and, hey, there's pro Mike Miller. You know, nobody knew who Mike Miller was, but he was a pro and he was doing a free clinic for new riders. So it ended up getting some riders in the sport. So it's been
Oh, okay.
a success that way, right?
Yeah. Which is I mean, which is okay. I think sometimes within just about any sport, and BMX is really no different, is that there's this aspiration to to get to those higher levels. And it seems exciting. It seems really cool. And Jason Morris is a great example of he moved to that pro level and then he stepped down from it. And even now,
Yeah,
people ask him, and he's very good. I don't know. I didn't see him race pro.
he was good. He
Okay.
was very good. And actually, Courtney raced pro as well.
Yeah.
So I always tell this story. It was kind of funny. We were at the Del Mar Nationals at the Del Mar Fairgrounds in Southern California. And the whole week before, they had built the track, and the whole week before it rained. And it was basically in an arena. And when they built the track, it covered all the drainage that would have allowed it to drain out. So the track was underwater. So they brought in pumps and they were pumping it out. They got it all cleared out and stuff, but it was gooey. And I go out. My son was racing at the time, so I go out and I'm walking around the track, and Mike Redmond's out there. He was announcing it, and he's standing with all the pros at that time. It was Josh Owe and I can't remember who else. Jared Coolidge. There was a bunch of them, a bunch of pros. I think Mike Day was there. Bubba was there. Donnie Robinson. I mean, it was all these guys, and they weren't like complaining like they were afraid of the jumps because they were too big or anything like that. But they were kind of saying, I don't think in this soft track we're going to be able to get enough speed out of that turn to hit the pro set and get all the way through it. And it's going to be dangerous. And you had these guys who were chasing titles and making money, and it was like, we should shut the pro set down. And they were all arguing for that. Everybody was lobbying to shut the pro set down. And he was probably 14 years old, man. Jason Morris just takes the turn and just hits the pro set and just nailed it, just floated right through it. And Redmond looks at me and he smiles and he looks over at the pros and he goes, any questions, boys? Like, Jason Morris just did it. And it was like, oh, shit. So they all started doing it. Shoot, sorry. Uh, they all started doing it. And, the track packed in over the weekend. And it was a great weekend. But yeah, he was fast enough to hang with the big boys. But I think um, it kind of hit him that it's not as fun anymore. You know what I mean? Like if you're leading a pro semi, unless you're Todd Lyons, you're not going to yank a triple and you know do a visor grinder at the finish line, or you're just not going to do that stuff, right? I mean, it's just what if I fall and get hurt, and then I won't make money.
Yeah.
I think when he went back to amateur, all of a sudden you started seeing his jumping get bigger, his antics that he does around the whole track. It just became fun again for him. I could probably say the same thing for Courtney. I've been announcing their races since they were both just young teenagers, and um, I watched Courtney become one of the competitive women pros, and then just kind of say, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the real reason. I never talked to her about it, but you could tell she has a way more fun now, especially with her kids. And Jason, the same thing than when they were racing pro. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think can be said about just about anything. I mean, there are people that can turn their passion and hobby into a career and they really enjoy it. And then there are other people that try to do just that and they hate it. Um and and I think in BMX racing, I think the reality is that for some people it works really well. Some people will have a lot more fun at the amateur level. Um, some people may really enjoy making it to the pro levels, but everybody's journey is different, and I think that bottom line, I think that uh, trying to put that focus and that priority on let's just go out and have fun. Let's ride bikes. Let's see what we can do to have a good time.
I can't imagine Jason getting in the gate and saying, "Man, I'd like to take that triple and try it." but I got to focus on racing right now. You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine that would almost be like a harness on him. You know what I'm saying? Where he just wants to go for it, and that's the best part about watching him ride is he's so talented. He's
Yeah.
just and another thing I love about him, he's not one of those guys that doesn't race locals. He comes out and he'll race a local at Ukaipa or Grand Prix. He's at Grand Prix all the time. Just race a local, just with points and trophies. You know, I mean, I don't think he takes trophies, but um, I mean, he's just having a good time. You can't fault it after that.
Yeah. Well, and he comes out to old school races, and him and
Oh
I have
yeah,
had a good time. And um,
yeah,
yeah, I'm not I'm not super close to him, but I'm not that far behind
yeah.
either. And being able to race with him and be able to have a good time, and um, I mean, at the end of the track, we're smiling, we're having fun, and it's worth it. Being out there is a good time.
There was a famous golfer. They say some will say he was the best golfer to ever play, Bobby Jones, and he always said that when people asked him, "How come you don't turn pro?" And he said something along the lines like, "A man who plays for money can never say he plays purely for the love of the sport." And I never want to stop playing for the love of the sport. And when I look at a Shane Harlow, when I look at a Jason Morris, that's what I see. When they're riding for the love of the sport. How do you take that? How can you
Mm.
take that away? You know?
That's cool. Yeah. And I think it's an important thing to remember, and it happens on the local level too. When you get the dads that are the factory dads that are living vicariously through their kids, and
Yeah,
I think in exactly that same way as it goes, it becomes a we have to instead of we get to,
right.
and takes that fun out of it. And, but that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about going to local tracks. It's one of the things that I enjoyed about getting to meet you and come out to Ukaipa. And one thing that I really enjoy that you do is, or that your track does, is the pump races, because
Yeah,
it adds in another level of really another level of work for the TO for Tim. It adds in another level of work for Tim. It's not easier for him to run another race, but running that as an open, and it makes it fun. It's just something goofy, something extra, something to get a little bit more track time, and it's enjoyable. But I just enjoy that, that dynamic, and the first time that I got to um, experience those pump races is I thought, man,
yeah,
this is a really cool, just fun extra thing that people are able to do, and it doesn't cost anything extra. It was just
yeah. It's free. We do it for free. We limit it to. We don't want semis. We when we didn't limit it, sometimes we would have semis in the pump race, and it's like, man, now it's become a chore. You know what I mean? You got to post semis nonstop. So the only thing we limit it to is 16 rides. If we can get 16 or less, we're good. So the
that.
first 16 to sign up, it's free. And most weeks we get um, the younger, the 13 and under, will get two gates. Usually it's 6 and 6 or 7 and 7. Very rarely 8 and 8. But the older one is sometimes we'll get two gates, but most of the time one gate, 14 and over. Yeah,
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, it's something fun, something that I really enjoyed. And um yeah, but Mike, I appreciate it. I want to be respectful of your time. And at the same time, I've been so grateful for the opportunity to talk to you, the times that we've had conversations, and I'm really thankful for you being willing to give up some of your time to be able to share with me and talk about BMX, because I do really appreciate what you do for the local and the new rider community.
absolutely. Love it. Um, yeah, if I can give a plug, Ukaipa, we race every Sunday. We have practice on Tuesdays, and the first Sunday of every month, no limit, free novice clinics for new riders, and even just some riders that may want to brush up on some basic skills. We don't go into too much. It's not a training session. It's more of a how to get through the rhythm section, how to corner, how to gate, how to balance in the gate. We even teach the parents, as if I get enough new riders, I teach the parents how to sign up and read the moto sheets and staging and all that stuff, as we're walking the kids up the hill. And so I think the dynamic there is just amazing. I mean, the Skeeble family goes way back in BMX, um, and Tim, he just works his tail off for that track, and all the volunteers are just such great people. And I've just never heard anybody say no. Like Shane Harlow decided last week, hey, can we open the gates on Saturday? I just want to give back to the sport and do a free clinic for anybody who wants to learn something. And I'll do it, as many hours as it takes. I'll be here. And so, we posted it and people start signing up, and we had a bunch of riders and free, no charge, no nothing. It's just come on out, ride with Shane. And he's a dad now. He's got two boys. And, it's just such a cool community. The family of Ukaipa is really, really neat. I'm just glad to be a part of it. Uh, I love it year in and year out. I look forward to Sunday afternoons.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, anytime that I'm down there, I've tried to get out there as many times as I could. I think I've been there 3 or 4 times, but um, it's a good time, and definitely have enjoyed getting to talk to Tim and Missy, and getting
Yeah,
to know them and what they've done. And yeah, it's a cool track, cool community. Uh,
yeah,
being able to see the team that you've got involved there, and um, yeah, thankful for everyone out there. So
yeah, really cool.
right on. Well,
All
Mike,
right.
thank you again. I appreciate your time, and
Thank
again,
you
thanks
for your
for
time. I
doing
appreciate
what
it. I
you've
mean,
done and
I
giving
could
back to
talk
the sport.
BMX all day, every day. so, getting an opportunity to talk BMX is awesome. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for telling some stories, and look forward to the next time I see you.
Yeah. Dirty Fest in June, right?
Yep, definitely. That one's on the books. We will be out there, and yeah, I don't know if I'll see you before then, but yeah, at least looking forward to the first full weekend of June.
All right.
Right
All right,
on.
Jake.
Cool.
Thanks, man.
Have a great evening, and we'll talk later.
All right, you too. Bye.
Cool. Bye. Thank you for joining us in today's episode. It is because of people like you and our sponsors who make this whole thing possible, because they have a desire to see the sport grow. If you would like to get involved in the mission of BMX Breakthrough, you can start by going to your local track, find a way to volunteer, help out, and serve there. Or you can go to our website, bmxbreakthrough.com, in order to donate, find out about sponsorship, or learn more.